Do you know who does the dirty work at the CIA? That secret unit so hidden that even its name is never mentioned in public. We're talking about the CSAC, the Center for Special Activities. They're the ones in charge of the darkest and most dangerous operations: sabotage, targeted assassinations, covert missions you'll never see in the headlines. But who are they really? How far are they willing to go to follow orders? In this video, we're going to tell you everything no one dares to reveal about the CSAC, the CIA's most lethal and enigmatic unit. Welcome to Amazing Stories. Today we're going to talk about one of the CIA's secret groups, but it's not the only one. There are also other paramilitary groups that are called in when there are no other options left. Among the many secret groups within the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States, there's one that is particularly interesting and rarely mentioned in any media outlet. And that's understandable, because there simply isn't much public information about them. I'm talking about the CSAC, a select group of people responsible for carrying out some of the most secretive, demanding, and dangerous missions in the world. All to protect the interests of the United States. Many of these are black operations. They're called that because of their extreme secrecy and lethality. Missions from this group have inspired movies and video games. But believe me, the truth is that their operations are much more raw and shocking. Get ready to learn about the CSAC, the CIA's most secretive and lethal unit. The Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, is a massive organization today. They have approximately between 20 and 30,000 employees. No one knows for sure, spread across a wide range of tasks. The vast majority have nothing to do with combat, secrecy, or those things we would consider espionage. However, there is a much smaller core, the Special Activities Center, known as CSAC, which was called SAT until 2016. This group is made up of only a few hundred people. The reason is simple. Their main mission is to carry out those black operations. You should know that these men walk a much finer line than other special forces. While units like SEAL Team 6 or Delta Force carry out highly classified operations, they are usually the ones who execute the missions, but in many cases, it is CSAC that plans them. Their motto is Tertia Optio, which means third option. Why? Because they represent the alternative when diplomacy fails and conventional military action isn't feasible. CSAC can be tasked directly by the President or by the National Security Council under the President's direction. They are the action arm of the CIA. CSAC carries out direct action missions, such as raids, ambushes, sabotage, targeted assassinations, and unconventional warfare. Many times, these operations are conducted outside international law and have major repercussions for other countries. If they are captured or killed, their names are rarely made public. Many of them aren't even listed as CIA employees. Their existence is erased, even from their own families. So it shouldn't surprise us to learn that much of what this group does has changed the world and shaped wars as we know them today. In 2019, Annie Jacobsen, in her book Surprise, Kill, Vanish, The Secret History of CIA Paramilitary Armies, Operators, and Assassins, refers to the CSAC as a highly classified branch of the CIA and the most effective black operations force in the world. She states that every U.S. president since World War II has asked the CIA to carry out sabotage, subversion, and assassinations, almost always through direct actions by the CSAC. Although it will never be officially confirmed, it is believed that CSAC agents were behind the capture of Osama bin Laden, sabotage missions in Syria, and key operations in Iraq and Afghanistan that changed the course of entire wars. Let's talk about the levels of secrecy in military operations: overt, covert, and clandestine. The CIA's CSAC is the main unit for clandestine operations, the United States Black Ops. There is no other unit more elite or more secret. But to understand them better, we need to look at how they are divided internally. Within the CSAC, there are two main groups. One is the SOF, the Special Operations Group, and the other is the PAG, the Political Action Group. Let's take a look at each of them. The Special Operations Group, the SOF, is the department within the CSAC responsible for clandestine or covert operations that the U.S. government does not want to be openly associated with. As such, the members of this unit, called paramilitary operations officers and specialized skills officers, usually do not wear uniforms or carry identification, unlike regular soldiers. The SOF is considered the most secretive special operations force in the United States, with fewer than 100 members. The group typically recruits personnel from U.S. Special Operations units with extensive experience. Recruiting for the CSAC is not easy. Most of its members come from elite units like the Navy SEALs, Delta Force, MARSOC, or Army Rangers. But even they must go through an additional evaluation and training process, where not only their physical endurance is tested, but also their ability to operate completely alone, make decisions under extreme pressure, and disappear without a trace. SOF operations officers make up the majority of recipients of the CIA's highest honors, such as the Distinguished Intelligence Cross and the Intelligence Star, awarded during conflicts or incidents where the CIA has had direct involvement. On the other hand, the CIA's Political Action Group, or PAG, is responsible for covert activities related to political influence, psychological operations, economic warfare, and cyber warfare. Although the SEAL's tactical units, the SOF, can also carry out covert political actions while deployed in hostile environments. Covert, political, and influence operations are used to support the foreign policy of the United States. Since openly supporting, let's say, an element of an insurgency can be counterproductive due to the unfavorable impression that the United States sometimes has in many countries, covert assistance allows the U.S. to help without damaging the reputation of its beneficiaries, that is, the high-level politicians they support. Their missions involve financial support for political candidates, guiding the media, technical support for public relations, efforts to get out the vote, political organization, advertising campaigns, assistance with and monitoring of polls, and other means of direct action. They even seek to influence policy decisions through agents such as subverted officials within the country, so that these officials make decisions that favor U.S. policy. The existence of SEC has sparked ethical debates in political and academic circles. Its operations, not being subject to the same level of oversight as the military forces, have been pointed out as violations of international law. However, for its supporters, SEC is simply the necessary tool to maintain national security, no matter the cost. They even try to influence political decisions through agents like subverted officials from the country, so that they make decisions that favor U.S. policy. Some examples of political action programs in which the PG is now known to have been involved were preventing the Italian Communist Party from winning elections between 1948 and the late 1960s, overthrowing the governments of Iran in 1953 and Guatemala in 1954, arming rebels in Indonesia in 1957, and providing funding and support to the Solidarity Trade Union Federation following the imposition of martial law in Poland after 1981. But you should know that the SAC, in its two main branches, SOF and PAG, also has its own operational divisions. They are basically divided into 5. The Ground Branch, the Maritime Branch, the Air Branch, and a Department for Armored and Special Programs. Each one plays a fundamental role. Let's go through them one by one. The Ground Branch, also simply known as GP for Ground Branch, is responsible for all covert operations carried out on land. They are considered experts in surveillance, small arms, hostage rescue, and advanced driving. There are several former Delta Force members who have gone on to join the Ground Branch of the SAC. Additionally, nowadays, the CIA likes to recruit young operators from special operations communities and have them rise through the agency's own ranks. The officers of the Ground Branch largely carry out the same mission as the United States Special Forces, unconventional warfare. In other words, working by, with, and through a country's local forces to accomplish their mission. During the global war on terror, the Ground Branch operated extensively in Afghanistan and Iraq. The Maritime Branch, as its name suggests, focuses on amphibious operations and, as such, tends to recruit former SEALs and Marine Recon, Marine Corps Reconnaissance, as its operators. The Maritime Branch of the SAC is responsible for specialized missions that involve water. This branch is the elite of the elite, so naturally, they are experts in boats, ships, diving, and other advanced maritime skills. The Air Branch. This subdivision is responsible for aviation activities. Only incredibly skilled pilots and aviation experts can be part of them. Many are recruited from the Air Force Special Operations Command, such as the 160th SOAR, known as the Night Stalkers, as well as from civil aviation companies. Their mission is to fly everything from light aircraft to large transport planes. The functions of the Air Branch include covert insertion and extraction of CIA personnel, covert transport of sensitive cargo, and aerial surveillance and intelligence gathering. And finally, the Armored and Special Programs Department. This branch is responsible for the development, testing, and covert acquisition of new armor, both for personnel and vehicles, as well as the maintenance of ammunition stockpiles and weapons systems used by the SOF, almost all of which must be obtained from clandestine sources abroad. This is done to provide SOF operatives and their foreign trainees with plausible deniability, in accordance with U.S. congressional directives. The members of this branch are almost never in direct action against the enemy, but they are essential for paramilitary operators to be able to do their jobs. And where do these operatives come from? How are they selected? Candidates for the SAC mainly come from two sources. The first is the elite special operations units of the U.S. military. We're talking about the Army's Combat Applications Group, known as Delta Force, and the Navy's Special Warfare Development Group, formerly known as SEAL Team 6. Other possible candidates come from former members of other elite military units, such as the Marine Corps Reconnaissance Units, Army Special Forces, Navy SEAL Teams, or even from within the agency's own ranks. We're not talking about rookies, like movies sometimes portray, or some guy they found off the street. SAC only recruits people with highly developed skills, who have already been tested both physically and mentally, and the vast majority of them also already have a lot of experience on the battlefield. As we've already mentioned, the CIA's formal designations for these individuals are paramilitary operations officers and specialized skills officers, depending on their assignment. Paramilitary operations officers usually attend a program with a covert name, abbreviated as CST. This program trains them as clandestine intelligence agents, and they also have to attend an internal paramilitary training course. A bachelor's degree is required to be considered, and many have advanced degrees, such as master's degrees or law degrees. SAC officers train at secret locations, like a facility in Virginia known as the Farm, and also at privately owned training centers throughout the United States, whose locations, of course, are not publicly known. In addition to the 18 months of training in the CST program, officers are trained to an extremely high level of proficiency in the use and handling of modern weaponry, explosive devices, and both foreign and domestic firearms, hand-to-hand combat, tactical high-performance driving, evasion of capture, cyber warfare, parachuting, high-altitude/low or high opening jumps, shipboard combat, closed-circuit diving, mastery of foreign languages, surreptitious entry operations, that is, forcing or bypassing locks, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, SEER, extreme and wilderness survival training, combat medical training, tactical communications, tracking tactics, and much more. The SAC usually operates in small teams, typically made up of between 2 and 10 operatives. Some operations are carried out by a single officer, although that is quite rare. These officers often operate in remote locations, behind enemy lines, to carry out direct actions. This includes raids and sabotage, counterintelligence, guerrilla or unconventional warfare, counterterrorism, and hostage rescue missions, as well as being able to conduct espionage through human assets, a set of disciplines aimed at gathering intelligence information from human sources. Now then, historically there have been 2 types of paramilitary operations officers, the Blue Badgers and the Green Badgers. The Blue Badgers are actual CIA employees who have gone through the same hiring process as the rest of the permanent staff. On the other hand, the Green Badgers are actually CIA contractors, meaning they are temporary employees. Many retired members of Delta and DevGroup, formerly known as SEAL Team 6, have this distinction. It's not known whether they still use this classification or if it has already changed to something else. Let's talk about known SAC missions. Although all operations involving the SAC are highly covert, there are some missions where secrecy didn't achieve its goal. Information was leaked, and now we know that the SAC was involved. It's important to remember that the identities of current SAC paramilitary operations officers are not known. In fact, the United States government can deny any knowledge of their association with the government if their identity is compromised during a mission. SOF paramilitary officers carried out the covert evacuation of American citizens and diplomatic personnel in Somalia and Iraq during the Gulf War. During periods of hostility, SAC officers have operated covertly since 1947 in places like North Korea, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Lebanon, Iran, Syria, Libya, Iraq, El Salvador, Guatemala, Colombia, Mexico, Nicaragua, Honduras, Chile, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Somalia, Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. A very long list. SOF units defeated an extremist group in Iraqi Kurdistan before the invasion of Iraq in 2003, and they entered, equipped, organized, and led the Kurdish Peshmerga forces to defeat the Iraqi army in northern Iraq. However, since the September 11th attacks, the United States government has relied much more heavily on the SOF. The reason? The fight against terror usually doesn't involve fighting other conventional armies. Instead, it means secretly going in and out of countries like Iran, Somalia, and so on, where the U.S. military isn't legally authorized to operate. SAC agents were the first U.S. forces deployed in Afghanistan in September 2001. Multiple CIA teams, made up of a mix of case officers, the traditional spies, and paramilitary officers from the SAC, joined various anti-Taliban forces throughout Afghanistan. Their mission was to represent the U.S. government, gather intelligence on extremist groups and the Taliban, and pave the way for coalition airstrikes and the entry of U.S. Special Operations Forces into the country. These CIA teams went on to establish contact with Northern Alliance commanders, relationships that were key to toppling the Taliban regime. And at that time, in 2003, SAC agents, together with Pakistani forces, captured Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in Rawalpindi, Pakistan. Khalid Sheikh was one of the masterminds behind the 9/11 attack. The SAC was involved in his interrogation, and this was crucial for the eventual elimination of bin Laden. On May 1, 2011, President Barack Obama announced that bin Laden had been killed in Abbottabad, Pakistan, by a small team of Americans acting under his direct orders during a CIA operation. Yes, by the CIA. The helicopter raid was carried out from a CIA forward operating base in Afghanistan by members of the U.S. Naval Special Warfare Development Group assigned to the CIA, along with CIA paramilitary operatives. That's right, the SAC. Moving on to more recent missions, we have Operation Kayla Mueller. On October 26, 2019, Delta Force carried out a raid in Syria's Idlib province, which resulted in the death of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS. The raid was launched based on an intelligence gathering and target reconnaissance effort led by the SAC, which located the leader after midnight local time. The 8 helicopters carrying the teams crossed hundreds of kilometers of airspace controlled by Iran, Turkey, and Russia. The 2-hour raid ended with Baghdadi fleeing from the U.S. forces into a dead-end tunnel and detonating an explosive vest, ending his life. During the Trump administration, the SAC began deploying small units of paramilitary officers around the world to locate and neutralize terror operatives and prominent members of extremist groups. Prominent members of the SAC. Of the few members that the SAC has, even fewer names have become publicly known. But here are some of them, unfortunately, fallen in the line of duty. On October 25, 2003, paramilitary officers Christopher Miller and Williams Harrison lost their lives while carrying out an operation to take down a high-ranking leader of an extremist group near Shkin, Afghanistan. Both officers were honored with stars on the CIA's memorial wall. These SAC officers saved the lives of others, including Afghan soldiers, during the clash with extremist forces. Greg Vogel, a legendary name in the community. On December 23, 1992, he became the first casualty of the conflict in Somalia. Vogel was a former Delta Force operator. He was killed while conducting special reconnaissance ahead of the entry of U.S. military forces into Somalia. His mission was completely voluntary, as it required entering a highly hostile area without any support. His actions provided U.S. forces with crucial information to plan their eventual amphibious landing. Tyson Zantic. In December 2012, Sergeant Major Tyson Zantic lost his life in action while repelling an enemy attack in Jalalabad, Afghanistan. This happened while he was trying to save a fallen soldier. Tyson had 24 years of service in the 1st Ranger Battalion, the 75th Ranger Regiment, and Delta Force. At the time of his death, he was contracted by the CIA and specifically assigned to the SAC. Even though the SAC is the most covert unit in U.S. special operations, numerous books have been published about the exploits of its officers, such as Feet to the Fire, Seized by Addictions about Indonesia, and A Dying at the Moon, the story of America's clandestine war in Laos. Additionally, some movies that drew inspiration from SAC members, formerly known as SAD, include Jason Bourne, Zero Dark 30, The Hunt for Red October, The Good Shepherd, and the series Days. And that's it for today's video. There was a lot of information left out, but this was already getting too long. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any stories like this one. Until the next amazing story.